Commentator Adama Gaye. Adama, thank you so much for joining us. We know that the Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb has now claimed responsibility for this attack. The question is, what could be their motive?
Look, it is precisely Al-Murabitun, which is a branch of Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, in the Sahelian region, that has claimed this attack. That's the same group that did the same operation on November 20th in Mali at the Radisson Hotel. So this is somehow a new approach by this group to strike and show its capacity to frighten the leadership in the region. Of course, it is the timing that is very important. There has been a democratic transition in Burkina Faso with the advent of a new president, Mr. Marc Roch Kaboré, after a few years of the hectic situation. And this is a way for the terrorist group to show that they can strike anywhere, taking advantage of the weakness of the state, in particular in Burkina Faso, where the capacity of the state has been weakened ever since the toppling in October 2014 of former President Blaise Compaoré, who was very strong in dealing with these kind of challenges, with his advisor, Mr. Shafi, who was known to be very close to the terrorists across the region. Somehow, is there any link between Mr. Al-Shafi's departure and Mr. Blaise Compaoré no longer in power, and the ability of these forces to challenge the democratic transition in Burkina Faso? That might be a possibility. But beyond all, there is a message that is sent across the West African region, from Nigeria to Niger Republic to Mali, Senegal, and today in Burkina Faso, that terrorists can strike, and this part of the continent is becoming the weak spot of the continent when in the battle against terrorism.
But what, in your view, what really is at the core of this Islamist extremism, particularly in the Sahel region, and just how deep-rooted is it?
Oh, it's profoundly rooted. So some trace it back to the toppling by NATO under Mr. Cameron and Mr. Sarkozy of the late president of Libya, the leader of Libya, Mr. Gaddafi, that unleashed a wave of terrorists across the West African region. Beyond that, you have also the other causes, the poverty that is striking the region, the type of leadership that is not always able and equal in managing the resources of the countries they are in charge of, and also the risk that we are seeing in this part of the continent, that they are losing progressively their sovereignty. On the one hand, with this asymmetric attack from these forces by terrorists, and on the other hand, by the fact that you now have special forces from Western nations operating to rescue such hapless countries. For instance, in Burkina Faso, as well as in Mali recently, it was the foreign special forces, France's forces, and the U.S. special forces, which had, for instance, in the case of the U.S., 75 special forces in Burkina Faso, that have acted in order to rescue the situation. I believe that this is an approach by this group that has been defeated or are going through very heavy challenges in Syria, in the Middle East, that they are trying to relocate in Western Africa, where they know that they don't have to face tougher challenges, and they are taking advantage of weak states. I think that's what is happening.
And very quickly, which brings me now to this question, following what you have just said about foreign forces being involved. Do countries then in the region have the capability to fend off this violence on their own, or they will forever depend on others to do it on their behalf?
They don't have the capacity, and somehow these are failed states that are not acknowledging their failure. They have the appearance of states with all the things that you can see, paraphernalia of a state, with presidents, with national anthem, and all these things. But at the end of the day, they don't have the military capability, they don't have the intelligence capability, they don't even have the financial muscle. And the type of leadership that has not been very equitable in managing the country created this kind of anger that is fueling the fire of terrorism in West Africa. As long as these problems are not addressed, and I think that that's the timing for African Union to step in with the ECOWAS organization, within also using also the state to find a way of defining a continental response to terrorism in order to avoid once again Africa losing the sovereignty to outside forces that are taking advantage of their inability to address the challenges. Of course, they cannot address it. And today, what you can see across the region, there is a risk in losing tourism, in losing momentum in economic development, and in losing stability across West Africa. Because from Senegal to Nigeria to Cameroon with Boko Haram, with all these negative forces operating and the failure of the state, we are confronted with a very serious problem. What happened in Burkina Faso can happen anywhere in West Africa at the moment.
Thank you so much. That was renowned political commentator there, Adama Gaye, speaking to us live from the Senegalese capital.